What's up YouTube, Capital G here. Want to do a quick discussion on Raid Raptor Lastrix. I kind of alluded to this in yesterday's video, but I feel like this card is so ridiculously good and has so much potential, and no one talks about it, no one plays it, and it's just such a waste of such a good card that no one really acknowledges how great this card is. Now, when we first kind of learned about Lastrix, a lot of people thought that it would kind of be an easy way. It would be a conduit to get to, you know, Ultimate Falcon, and Ultimate Falcon is a really good card. It's kind of like, you know, a tower is essentially like an XC version, but the problem with that was, you know, like it was only playable in Raid Raptors because you generally had to go for like Satellite Falcon, and then you could just rank it up, whether it was in the graveyard with Soul Shade Force, or you could use like Skip Force to just go straight into Ultimate Falcon. But really the problem with that is not just it being only playable kind of in Raid Raptors, but the fact that like Utopia the Lightning makes Ultimate Falcon just not as good. Like Ultimate Falcon just pretty much gets shit on by Utopia the Lightning, and pretty much everybody kind of has access to that play. In addition, obviously there are kaiju, so there are obvious outs to that. But the thing about this card, and why I think it is still fantastic, is it does essentially allow you to get a huge monster just by tributing it itself. Like you don't have to run any other additional cards, and you essentially end up with a 4,000 beater that has built-in protection. And I'm like, that is so good. Why does nobody play that? Now you do have to give up damage for the rest of the turn, but I mean, it's been proven with things like Card of Demise. While this combo doesn't give you 3 cards, it does set up for your future turns. Like, it's been proven that giving up damage for the rest of the turn isn't really that big of a deal. Now, if you're not familiar with the play, you're like, what are you talking about, Cap? How does summoning a Lastrix get you a 4,000 attack monster? It's really, really simple. All you do is you summon Lastrix, you activate its effect, and then you summon an Ultimate Falcon, and then you immediately rank up your Ultimate Falcon into 7 Sins. Now, 7 Sins doesn't have 2 materials, so it wouldn't be able to activate the whole, you know, blow up all your opponent's special summon monsters, but you do get the protection. So, you know, it's immune to things like Regeki or Dark Destroyer. I mean, I guess if they use 2 of those in one turn, but it's immune to the first one that they activate. Like if they try and Regeki you, you can obviously just detach the material, and then, you know, your 7 Sins will just live. And even though you can't do damage for the rest of the turn, like, isn't that just so freaking imposing? You know what I mean? Just having a 4,000 attack monster. And I want to say that people are kind of hesitant to acknowledge this because, you know, the extra deck can be so tight, and I've built decks where I'm like, man, I really wish that, you know, Konami would increase the extra deck to like 20 spots or whatever. But if you're playing just like a deck that mainly summons like rank 4s, like I'll just draw some examples, like kind of like Machinas and Teller Knights and Gadgets, maybe Gladiator Beasts, Gravekeepers, decks that are primarily focused on level 4s, like how many monsters do you really need that are staple anyways? Because I kind of got a list here, and it's really just, you know, like Castel, Abyss Dweller, and then the Utopia boys. And it's like, you don't necessarily have to run Daigusto Emerald. You don't have to run 101. You don't have to run Gagaga Cowboy. Most people run those cards because you just, you know, you have so much space, so it's like, why not? But you don't really have to run. These are the only 4 cards that I consider mainly staple, and Utopia is only on here to summon Utopia the Lightning. So I don't really think extra deck space is really an excuse not to even experiment with this. And the cool thing about this is, since everything like that you're summoning, the final, the first normal summon, which would be Lastrix, and then the final product, 7 Sins, it means that you can actually incorporate things like Goes and Match into these other decks. Like some of the decks that I thought you could easily splash a couple of copies of Lastrix, because if you run 3 copies, you don't want to clog your hand, and plus that would require you running like, you know, 6 copies between the 3 7 Sins and the 3 Ultimate Falcons. If you just ran a couple of them, you could easily splash them into decks like Dark Lords or Gravekeepers, and you could still run, you know, something like Goes and Match. Although it might conflict a little bit in Dark Lords with Archlord Christia, but you don't have to run Archlord Christia. The point of this is, like, in a deck like Gravekeepers that are just struggling for offense. I mean, when you think of Gravekeepers, outside of basically exceeding, like, what offense do they really have? Because Descendant is pretty much the only one that I can think of, and obviously with so many cards not being able to be targeted, Descendant isn't nearly as good as it was in the past. And you think of a deck like Dark Lords, yeah, it does have a lot of offense, but Dark Lords are a deck that really don't use their normal summon that much. So this could be the perfect card to just throw a 4,000 beat stick in your opponent's face for those turns when you don't normal summon. Like, I've got a build of Dark Lords, and the only thing you really normal summon is kind of like Kari Bandit. You don't really normal summon these guys. You either special summon them off of, I think it's Altar. I can't remember off the top of my head which card it is. Or you just summon them off like Call of the Haunted. Another good thing about this combo is, let's say that you get the 7 sins and then like it dies 2 turns later or whatever. If you're running a deck that runs Call of the Haunted, you can just Call of the Haunted to 7 sins. Now, I don't believe you can Call of the Haunted the Ultimate Falcon because it was just summoned. It wasn't properly XC summoned, so I don't think that you can do that. But you can just summon the 7 sins back. It doesn't have the protection, but it's still a 4,000 beater, so you can't really sleep on that. And I kind of look at this somewhat similar to Instant Fusion and Norden. Like, those cards obviously give you much more, like they give you stronger plays because there's so much variety in the rank 4 pool, and with Last Tricks you're really just getting a 7 sins. But in a deck like Gravekeepers, where you really can't play Instant Fusion and Norden because obviously Norden just won't, like, he won't work because Necro Valley is just like, nope, Norden, your effect won't activate or your effect won't resolve or whatever. You know, this card is definitely an option. And another thing that I thought about is if you wanted to use, you know, Last Tricks, like if you wanted to use it in kind of like a stun deck, a defensive deck, a deck that doesn't have offense, which is ideally for where you should try and squeeze this card in. If you were running Card of Demise, you don't even technically have to worry about Last Tricks being super dead, because some people might be thinking, oh, Cap, well, if I use Card of Demise, obviously I can't special summon I can't special summon with Last Tricks, so it's kind of dead. I don't want to draw it and it be, you know, sitting in my hand. You remember this, Allure Darkness did just go to 3. So imagine if you played this in Gravekeepers, right? You're going to play Demise in Gravekeepers. But imagine if you drew your Last Tricks. Okay, well, you're probably running a couple of copies of like Allure Darkness. You technically could run 3 copies. That might be a little much, but you can run 3 copies of Allure Darkness now. So there's no reason why like Force Tricks would absolutely just be stuck in your hand anyways. I don't know. I look at this card, guys, and I just see I see its ceiling being extremely high, and I'm just like, why doesn't anybody splash this into like any type of stun variants? Or, you know, Thunder King Ryo is now at 2, so you could play maybe even like a chaos variant where you use things like Thunder King Ryo, some good dark monsters, maybe a BLS Chaos Sorcerer, you know, Allure Darknesses and Last Tricks can obviously just, you know, further be like your you know, your dark cards that you need to summon your chaos monsters. I mean, I also could mention that you could 1-for-1 it, but like I don't think I would really recommend 1-for-1 in any of these decks that you'd be splashing Last Tricks in, because Last Tricks would probably be your only level 1 unless you wanted to put it in potentially something like Sylvans. The problem with Sylvans is a lot of times you want to use your normal summon on like Lone Fire Blossom, or you want to use like Miracle Fertilizer. So I'm not sure that that works. I mean, summoning this guy off of 1-for-1 would be super cool, but like I don't know if I'd want to use my, unless I like super bricked. But I don't know, this is just food for thought. Like, what do you guys think of Raid Raptor Last Tricks? Like, it's obviously amazing in Raid Raptors, but I feel like this card and like maybe playing a couple of these, a couple of Ultimate Falcons and a couple of 7 Sins, I feel like you can just take this and splash it in just a bunch of different decks. Like, if you have a deck that is very defensive and it needs offense, like this is something that's definitely worth considering. Like, it doesn't matter that you give up battle damage for the rest of the turn if you're setting yourself up with a huge imposing monster, because how many ways do people really have of outing your 7 Sins? You don't even have to, the thing is, you don't even have to summon 7 Sins in attack mode if you're afraid of, you know, 101 or whatever. I mean, I guess like they could Castell it and they could Utopia it, but that's like, those are probably the most common ways. I mean, everybody out there is not running a Tiramisu or an Ignister or something like that. Those are cards that are not that easy to get. So you could even slap this guy in defense mode, 3,000 booty, and know that you've got that material kind of, you know, to protect your guy. Could you imagine playing this in Pendulum Magicians, a deck that I don't even think is good anymore? I mean, outside of Magic Spectre, Bambanku, and Joker, what do you really want to normal summon in that deck? Because I can't think of anything. Like, could you imagine if you had a field of 7 Sins plus Corinne? Like, you know, Corinne fields are generally very controlling, but they don't have a lot of offense. So now you could have Corinne bouncing shit every turn. That could be like your defensive card. And then you've got a 7 Sins just wailing on your opponent over and over and over again. And it's like, man, the only out that I've got is like Castell and Utopia the Lightning. Those are the only ways I can kill this damn card. So anyways, just something I want wanted to talk about. I'm going to figure a way to get this in some deck. I don't know what the deck's going to be. It'll probably be something using Goes and Match. So it'll probably be like a dark related deck. I don't know. Maybe even splash them into Dark Lords. But just a video that I kind of wanted to put out because this has been on my mind for a little bit. Thank you guys for watching as always. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And actually one more thing, because I know I spent a lot of time talking about how giving up damage for the rest of the turn isn't really that big of a deal, and I really don't think it is. But what if you summon it in a turn where you can't do damage anyways? Like, what if you summon this turn 1, like, let's just say hypothetically, right? Like, what if you had Last Tricks plus Goes and Match turn 1? Wouldn't you consider that an extremely strong opening turn? Like, if you get to 7 sins and then you can flip over Goes and Match against your opponent, like, the most common ways that people are going to be able to out this are, I guess, things like, you know, maybe Erebus, and like, I guess coming out of the extra deck, it would mainly be like Utopia the Lightning and Castel, but Goes and Match should be able to shut that down. I mean, I guess there are a couple of decks that can go into, that could probably like go into, you know, Utopia the Lightning under Goes and Match would be maybe like Star Seraphs or ABC, and ABC might become a little more, you know, prevalent than you'd like, but outside of that, I don't know, man. I think it'd be an extremely strong opening. So not trying to say there's going to be any tier 0 shit before I get a bunch of dumb comments. I'm just saying this is a card that I like. I think it's very good, and I felt like discussing it.